Welcome to the showcase of Symphony No. 1, The Lord of the Rings, composed by Johann de May for the Wind Orchestra. Johann de May, who was born on the 23rd November 1953 in Voorburg, received his medical education at the Royal Conservatory in Hague. He studied band conducting and trombone. He is a writer of programmatic music and has similarities with both classical and modern composers. The Symphony No. 1, The Lord of the Rings, is his first composition made for the symphonic band. This creation premiered in Brussels in 1988 and was performed by the Groot Harmonicus van de Gitsen under the baton of Norbert Nosy. In 1989, this piece was awarded first prize in the Sutler International Wind Band Composition Competition in Chicago. The Lord of the Rings is based on the book trilogy by J.R.R. Tolkien. This book has fascinated millions of readers worldwide since its publication in 1955 and was made into a blockbuster movie series that was released in 2001.
The main outline of the story is as follows. The central theme is the ring, made by primeval forces that decides the safety or destruction of the world. For years, it was the possession of the creature Gollum, but when the rings falls into the hands of the hobbits, the evil forces awake, and the struggle for the ring commences. There is but one solution to save the world from disaster. The ring must be destroyed by the fire in which it was forged, Mount Doom in the heart of Mordor, the country of the evil Lord Sauron. It is the hobbit Frodo who is assigned to carry out this task, and to assist him, a company, the Fellowship of the Ring, is formed under the leadership of Gandalf the Wizard, which include Hobbit Sam, Perrin and Merrin, the Dwarf Gimli, the Elf Legolas, Boromir and Aragorn, the later king. However, the companions soon fall apart. After many adventures, the ring is eventually destroyed, and the story ends with Frodo sailing away on a white ship together with Gandalf and the Elven Hood.
The band given the responsibility of telling this classic story of good versus evil is the Symphonic Wind Orchestra of St. Michael of Thorn. This band is a Dutch ensemble founded in 1863 and boasts of an unparalleled achievement of winning 3 times in the most prestigious musical event for wind bands, the World Music Contest held in Kuwait, the Netherlands, once every 4 years. Under the leadership of renowned wind band expert Heinz Friesen, nothing less than the best is expected from this potent collaboration. The wind band, the symphonic band, the concert band, the wind ensemble, the wind orchestra, these are all synonyms of an ensemble which relies mainly on wind instruments and percussion with few or no string parts. It is a medium that only became popular in the middle of the 20th century. Band music has moved away from its stereotyped marches and military parade music to take a deserving place amongst the canon of ensembles which deal with serious music. This only goes to show the versatility and virility of wind instruments in their various combinations and the potential of these ensembles, which have been recognized by great composers of the likes of Gustav Holst, Malcolm Arnold, Percy Grainger, and many more who have composed for orchestras without the entire string section.
So what's the difference without the violins, violas and cellos? There's no difference musically, just that there are no parts for string instruments. Many wind bands have retained the string bass in their midst to assist in delicate passages which tubas sometimes seem too clumsy in. In terms of repertoire, arrangers have substituted the string parts of many classical transcriptions for wind bands with other instruments, usually the woodwinds. If anything, these parts require much more virtuosity from the wind players, as they are not often exposed to such parts due to the limitations of breath control in the playing of wind instruments. Rather than falter or compromise the music, the wind bands have developed a new genre of startling virtuosos who handle these challenges with an easy proficiency. No doubt, the wind band has different sounds from an orchestra, but its unique sonority is perhaps the best reason why we should pay attention to these new ensembles. They can generate beautiful phrases and strains never heard before by musicians who have challenged the limitations of the wind band, and sweet music literally with the air in their lungs. Each delicate phrase a sigh, and each note in the grandest fanfare a test of stamina and strength.
The first movement is a musical portrait of the wizard Gandalf, one of the principal characters of the trilogy. His wise and noble personality is expressed by a stately motif which is played by trumpets and French horns to give a grand opening. It is further reinforced by the clashing of the cymbals. In the background, you can hear the flutes and clarinets playing demi-semi-quaver in different keys. It is a hint of the wizard's magical abilities. Now, you hear a chorale which evokes a different emotion as compared to the stately motif played in the beginning. It reveals Gandalf's personality as more than just majestic. You are going to hear questions posed by the solo trumpet and answered by the lower brasses. This is commonly heard in symphonic bands. We have more trumpets coming in now, continued by the entry of the woodwinds to build this segment into grander soul. The change in mood depicts the transformation of Gandalf the Grey to Gandalf the White. Anticipate the Allegro vivace marked by the opening fortissimo note and the timpani solo that follows. This shifts the theme to Shadowfax, Gandalf's mighty steed.
The tension builds up here with the use of crescendo. The pedal notes played by the piano and the trombones suggest danger. The increasing tempo, combined with the use of wood blocks, depicts the scene of Gandalf on Shadowfax chasing evil. The ups and downs of the journey is executed by the clarinets playing upscale, intersected with the downscale played by other instruments. The chords played on the downbeat broaden as layers are added to increase movements to the segment. Dime is renowned for writing huge chord structures that are meaningful because of the ever-changing texture. Here, the slowing of the tempo played by the lower brasses and the percussions prepares the listener for the climax. As Gandalf witnesses the events transpiring against Middle-earth, he is filled with sorrow and dread, which is illustrated in this segment played at Maestro. Dime chooses the bass line of the ensemble to play the melody. This is unusual for a symphony, as bass line normally plays the chord instead of the melody. Here, we are reminded of the magical nature of Gandalf by the use of bells and the piano playing quavers. The melody is played by the alto saxophone and the French horn, which are closely related in their tone colours. As the movement nears the end, the steady motif is repeated. However, this time, the second fanfare sounds heavier with the addition of the euphonium. This signifies the change in Gandalf at the end of his journey to a stronger character. The hunting horns, which are often used in wars, signify Gandalf's fight against evil throughout his life. The song ends on a grand note.
The second movement is an impression of Lothlorien, the elven wood with its beautiful trees and plants, expressed through the clarinet solo played in a free flow style. There is no regularity even though the solo is played in 4/4 time. This represents the relief and unrestraint felt by the company in the elven wood. It is a safe sanctuary as compared to their previously harrowing experience in the mines of Moria. Lothlorien is a sacred place where entities are of a resolute, persistent existence. This idea is epitomized by the bass line, which is held in the suspended notes played from the start with no break in a tonic note. As Frodo and company were blindfolded while being led through the woods, they are deprived of sight, which is why we do not hear a plethora of sounds here. Instead, only a few instruments are presented each time, akin to bouts of perception from the heightened awareness of their surroundings. The entry of the horn melody signifies the taking off of blindfolds for Frodo and company, unveiling sights of beautiful Lothlorien, lush green grass and golden trees. The chirping of birds flying in the blue sky is effectively mimicked by the piccolo here. The diminished trumpet chords, followed by the minor horn chords, lead into another melody starting with the flutes. The company treads through Lothlorien and walks amongst the wood of the ancients living. Time comes to a standstill, depicted with a repetitive melody played by the oboe with flutes mimicking birds in the background. Frodo with Lady Galadriel is embodied in a charming allegretto. The sounds of the forest disappear as more brasses are added in. Again, Dimay uses the minor chords and diminished chords here to create instability in the music. We feel the tension within Frodo and the hobbits as Lady Galadriel held them with her eyes. This is represented by the clarinets playing a minor progression and hitting the high notes, the height of tension. The elves and their associated heritage of nobility are shown through the heroic chords from the French horns, which has a soothing effect on the tense hobbits.
Peace is restored again, with the birds chirping in the background, played by the flutes. We are presented with a picture of the elves going on their usual activities in Lothlorien. As the companions set or walk together in Lothlorien, they are reminded of Gandalf's death. Their grief of his loss is portrayed in a minor key played by a French horn melody, as if they are staging a funeral in their minds. A segment of Gandalf's theme played here to remind us of him. The sad thoughts passes here and the melody returns to that of before, this time played by a trumpet. The entry of the timpani later marks a change in mood. Tensions build out as the tempo increases, with the lower brasses playing a series of quavers. Lady Galadriel shows Frodo the mirror of Galadriel, a silver basin in the wood, where he sees the evil Lord Sauron's eye. The running notes played by the woodwinds in the background escalate the panic felt by Frodo. Note the playing of a high piccolo notes which is in discord with the other parts for a long time. It represents how Frodo was disturbed by the eye for a long period. Even after the meeting with Lady Galadriel, the images of the eye keep flashing in Frodo's mind. The series of quaver played here by clarinets creates an eerie effect as they crescendo and decrescendo. The timpani in the background symbolize the heartbeats Frodo felt after his shock. The beats slowly die away, bring the movement to a close.
The third movement describes the monstrous creature Gollum, a slimy shy being represented by the soprano saxophone. The first two beats give us an idea of how slimy and creepy Gollum is with the use of a series of notes. From loud crescendoing to even louder, the opening shocks us, just as what the first impression of Gollum would. Hints of the split personality of Gollum are dropped here, with the variations in dynamics from loud to soft to loud again. The overall sliminess of Gollum is represented by the soprano sax here. We hear how Gollum hisses and leaps, whines and snickles. Despite the oboe having a similar tone color, DeMay chooses the soprano sax as he does not want something conventional. Moreover, the saxophone can bend notes and even reach notes that are screeching, while the oboe will sound sweet, which is not a fair description of Gollum. Listen to the droplets of water played by xylophone and piano to show Gollum's life in the cave and how he catches fish in the water for food. We notice how the notes drop from an extremely high range to a low range. Again, this is indicative of Gollum's dual personality, how he is malicious and evil, yet falling into sudden depression at random. The insanity of Gollum is presented here, with the tempo increased to allegro and the addition of euphoniums and basses playing a bouncy rhythm in the background. We imagine how Gollum jumps about, waggles and talks to himself when he's in a happier mood. The rattler is added to this segment of melody to depict how the fishes shake as Gollum catches them. It also creates tension in this piece. The same motif is being repeated. The piccolo plays the melody with the soprano saxophone to increase sheerness with the sound of the muted horns coming in first, then followed by the muted trumpets in the background. Note how this series of notes were played in Lotharing to represent the eye. It shows how the ring, which is controlled by the eye, is part of Gollum. Bilbo takes away the ring from Gollum. This segment taken at Vivace shows how Gollum chased after Bilbo to take back his precious. He pounced on him, but missed again and again. Listen to the fast semi-quavers played by the trumpet and woodwinds here. It creates anxiety in this piece. A sudden change in tempo to presto agitato indicates the confusion within Gollum. He talks to himself incessantly, represented with the rapid playing of semi-quavers by the trumpets and the snare drums.
The entry of the horns, lower brasses, and piano increases the depth to change the setting to the fight between Frodo and Gollum at Mount Doom. Gollum falls into the depths of Mount Doom as the woodwinds play a falling motif, with the trumpets playing descending chords followed with a loud bass note to depict his death. The fighting scene is over, and the music changes to a pitiful mood taken at a slower tempo moderato with an English horn solo, as if a funeral is being staged for Gollum. Again, the soprano sax is heard here. From this moment onwards, the music is replaying the images of Gollum to remind us of his character. The saxophone alternates between pitiful and malicious, but we feel sorry for Gollum as he's ultimately a sad character. Note the crescendo of the trombones with glissando notes. The forcefulness of the notes shows the anger within Gollum towards himself and to others. We hear a repetition of the melody played before to depict Gollum's madness. It is interesting to note the flow of this movement. It starts with the soprano sax, followed by this segment, and then to the faster tempo and funeral, back to the soprano sax, and to this allegro segment again. Here, we are reminded of how Gollum climbs and crawls with the snaky expressions played by the saxophone and the alto clarinets. Listen to the contrast between the descending notes played by the flutes and the ascending notes played by the alto clarinet. Again, this pinpoints to the conflict in Gollum's character, how he is evil and yet pathetic. This sequence is repeated with the upper clarinets and baritone saxophone. With a crescendo of a timpani roll, the music gets broader with the addition of lower brasses, cymbals, and piano playing in 6/8 time. The same melody is repeated to show the centuries of madness Gollum went through. All instruments of this band are playing here, and a mess of sound is created to depict disorder within Gollum. Excitement builds up as the brasses play a series of ascending and descending semi-quavers at fortissimo. It becomes quieter with the soprano sax playing the melody. After a conflicting chord, the movement ends with a set of accented triplets and quaver to create a maximum impact.
This movement begins with the fellowship led by Gandalf into the minds of warrior. Their soft footstep is conveyed by the soft timpani. As the movement progresses, the beats get longer and heavier with the opening up of the chord structure. This portrays the image that the fellowship is becoming tired after working for days. Here, there is an extensive use of horns, played in a very low range, which creates an unsettling effect on the listeners, just as it did on the fellowship. Dimay chooses the horns instead of trombones to create a coarse sound in that range to emphasize the discomfort felt by the fellowship. Note the use of the lower range of instruments so far, the bassoon, baritone sax, basses and percussion. This gives a dark feeling to the piece. The slow walking cadenza and the fear are clearly audible in the monotonous rhythm of the low brass, piano and percussion. Notice the innovative use of the piano to symbolize the ox secretly following the fellowship. The Mines of Moria used to be the stronghold of the dwarfs. The horns used here imitate war horn to highlight the combative nature of the dwarfs. As the muted trumpet crescendo, you feel the increasing fear and panic felt by the fellowship in the eerie mines of Moria. Anticipate the flutter tonguing of horns. This mimics the ox preparing for battle. The chord usage here increases the creepiness of the piece. Notice how all the melody starts on the upbeat instead of the downbeat. This increases the tension within the fellowship. Three quavers by the lower brasses and timpani, followed by the tubular bell, the setting changes to Bridge of Khazad-dûm. Gandalf senses evil approaching them. The fellowship starts to increase their pace. Confusion is sensed here, with the playing of melody by many instruments one after the other.
The playing of the solo piccolo in the high range creates panic. The ascending triplets played by the lower woodwinds and brasses create a feeling of dread and terror which builds up as they begin to run. Tempo increases to that of Allegro Foroce as the ox catch up with them. The unison playing of crotchets depicts the uniform footstep of the fellowship running together from the ox. The fanfare playing of the heroic chords depict the courage of Gandalf who leads the fellowship. The fluttering of the muted trombones depict the war cries of the chasing ox. After a wild pursuit by the ox, Gandalf is engaged in a battle with the horrible monster, the Balrog on the Bridge of Khazad-dûm. We can hear the ferocious whip of Balrog. Upscale and downscale playing imitates the trajectory of the whip. The landing blow of the whip is depicted by the vibrous slap. The intensity of the whip increases each time, which is showed by the increasing loudness of the vibrous slap. The third whip was the fatal blow for Gandalf. Gandalf's death is sounded by his fanfare. Note that it is played in a lower key as opposed to the first movement to show the felling of Gandalf. DeMay uses the general pause to illustrate the terrible grief felt by the fellowship on the loss of Gandalf. Listen to the sorrowful melody played by the English horn, accompanied by the lower brasses in a minor key. A shimmer of hope here, as depicted by the higher woodwinds and the tinkling of the triangle. To the melancholy tones of the funeral march for Gandalf, the depressed companions trudge on, looking for the only way out of the mines of Moria.
This final movement opens with a slow, peaceful melody. This is to symbolize the characteristic of the hobbits as a peace-loving race. Await the reintroduction of Gandalf's stately motif as heard in the first movement. This is to create an opening and closing to the symphony and wrap it up to make it a cohesive piece of work. This also portrays the relationship between Gandalf and the hobbits. In the background, you can hear the flutes and clarinets playing demi-semi-quavers in different keys. A change of tempo to allegretto with spirit to illustrate the hobbits waking up from sleep, their favorite pastime. Now the party starts with the hobbits singing and dancing in a joyous manner with the bright melody played by the trumpet. This is typical of the lifestyle of hobbits who are fun-loving and carefree. The melody repeats itself. We see a variation of dynamics from loud to soft, which depicts the different moods of the hobbits. Of the melody to the French horns and the saxophones set a more boisterous mood to the piece. The counter melody played by the trombones is important as it shapes the melodic line. The party gets bigger with the melody played by the lower brasses, creating a broader sound with xylophone and woodblock in the background. Of the French horns as a counter melody played a descending scale suggests an underlying heroism of the hobbits. This shows that the character of the hobbits goes beyond playfulness. Here the French horns are played again. Here the time changes from cut common to 3/4.
Now the B-flat clarinets start playing the Hobbit's hymn in the middle range. It is a slower chorale version of the Hobbit's theme, which we heard earlier. Now we can hear the introduction of the flugelhorn. This is to create a mellow and warm melody and to maintain a warm sound of B-flat clarinet in the chorale. In this section, a gendered bass line played by the pizzicato string bass is heard. The Rallalando leads into a slower tempo that helps to build a broader and fuller sound, with more brasses and woodwinds. There are also drum rolls in the background, illustrating the marching of hobbits towards their mission to save Middle-earth, to achieve great things, thus breaking out of their previous mediocre existence. Here, counter melody becomes much grander, with the playing of fanfare by trumpets and horns, symbolizing the victory over evil. Here, Dimay incorporates the motif played in previous movements to round out the symphony. You'll hear the most obvious of the repeated theme of Gandalf, which is played in the first movement. Listen to the glissando on the horns, which adds to the grandeur. The symphony does not end on an exuberant note. It concludes peacefully and resigned, in keeping with the symbolic mood of the end of their adventure, in which Gandalf and Frodo sailed away in a white ship and disappeared slowly beyond the horizon.
Overall, this is an excellent piece of work. The rendition by the Symphonic Wind Orchestra of St. Michael of Thorn was of very high standards indeed. The sounds of the symphonic brass of the wind orchestra produce magnificent tone while not being overly brassy. They handle the many difficult passages with great ease as well. The soprano saxophone solo is both wicked and sad. Even more impressive is how DeMay's ambitious creative efforts seem justified by the superb feel of the musicians, thus allowing this programmatic work to achieve its ultimate effect in a musical retelling of Tolkien's epic. To elaborate on some of the areas that were exceptional, in Gandalf, the majesty of the movement really gives a wonderfully detailed audio picture of the wizard. For the part on the exciting ride on Shadowfax, the band managed to put across the idea that Shadowfax was a powerful steed that brought Gandalf to places effortlessly. The band also does a great job on focusing on the details of the ride, such as the ups and downs and the possible stumbles. This enables the telling of a story and not reduces the movement to simply a grand chase where loud brushes are used to hide the messy whirlwind runs and the band plays the ride as fast as they can to try to make it exciting. For Lothlorien, the band does an excellent job of describing Frodo's experience in the Elven Wood. The movement gives an accurate depiction, starting from the blindfolds to the aftermath of the vision of the eye. We did not find any areas that could have been better.
However, we feel that there are still some areas that this piece can be improved on. For the fourth movement, The Journey in the Dark, we felt that the band did not really produce the effect of fear and panic that the Fellowship experienced from the time they entered. We feel the bass line should have been louder from the start of the movement. This is because the Fellowship had difficulty finding their way in, and they were actually pursued all the way by the orcs. So perhaps it would have been better if their accelerated heartbeats were incorporated from the start. Also, there seems to be too many repetitions in the piece. For example, the stately motif of Gandalf appeared twice in the last movement. It seems that there might be an underdevelopment of musical ideas here. Finally, we think that this piece would be better appreciated if Johann DeMay is able to write the piece in a way that it creates links between all the movements. This would make the piece more complete and systematic. Most people understand the trilogy as a storyline rather than individual characters and places. Thus, if Johann DeMay is able to create the piece in accordance to the storyline, this piece would be much more welcome by more people.